All right, we're going to introduce you to the Stoelting soft serve machine. Going to interpret this as we're going to freeze the ice cream mix up first. I'll show you how to load the mix into the hopper, how to start the machine, how to freeze the mix. Then we'll draw some mix into some serving cups. Then we'll drain the mix out and go through a full cleaning process, just so you know where we're starting and ending. When you come to the machine, it will be fully powered off. There's two versions of the power button on this control panel. The main power on off, there's no refrigeration going to this unit at all. So I press that button and the power comes on. That's just going to start refrigeration to my hoppers. It will not freeze the cylinders at that point. So first thing we're going to do to load the unit up is when you first get to the machines, there will be what they call carburetor tubes sitting in the hopper. And the way to load the carb tube is there's a hole close towards the back, and the rod on this tube needs to be towards the front. There's only one way you can put it in. It can't be done the wrong way. So the rod's towards the front, and that just gets pressed in. And what this allows the machine to do is it's regulating the air inside the freezing cylinder. Once that tube is in, then we can load the mix. And these machines have been set by the technician, chocolate left, vanilla on the right. And the reason that is these two mixes have different sugar contents, and each barrel has been adjusted to freeze proper consistency, chocolate and vanilla. Chocolate on the left, vanilla on the right. So I'm just pouring in the mix. So once you have the soft serve product in the hoppers, push to freeze left, push to freeze right. And while these are going to take anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes to freeze up the soft serve consistency, one thing you want to add is your star bits as it's freezing. And these simply give the soft serve its star-like appearance. And it's going to give more air in your draw, so you're not using as much ice cream. Without the star bits, it's just going to be a circular draw, and you're going to actually be using more ice cream mix every time someone uses the soft serve. So a little bit of backtracking. When you do add mix the first time on that carb tube, it's okay to get in there, pull the carb tube up and let it bleed in instead of trying to do it naturally through the smaller holes. But the chocolate's almost like a pudding consistency, so I had to pop that open a little bit and let it in. So as it's freezing, you can see by the bars on the window, there's like 8 little bars. It's kind of like a little Atari game, but it's actually, as it's clicking up, it kind of lets the operator know where you're at on the consistency wise, but it'll let you know when it's ready to serve. So as you're drawing, the busier you get and the more times you're drawing ice cream, it'll start to back down a little bit, and it'll let you know your soft serve is going to get a little bit soupier until you let that bar come back up to full serving strength. The rest of the buttons on the control, select, set, help, these are not for end user. These are all for service technicians. There's a code to get in here. As an end user, the two main controls we're worried about are these three on the top here. Left on, left off. Push to serve right, push to serve left, clean right. There's really only 6 buttons we need to concern ourselves with, and the main power button. So both cylinders are ready for service. And you can simply draw either chocolate or vanilla, or a twist of both. There is an adjustment under each head to adjust the draw valve, how much ice cream is going to be dispensed. So you could get to the point where you're not getting much ice cream out of here. Clockwise is going to decrease the amount of ice cream each draw valve is going to get. Counterclockwise is actually going to open up so you can draw more soft serve. And this is another day in, day out. We didn't set those. It's one of those things where you need to take a look at it, see how each machine's reacting. Once you get all these cylinders filled up and run serve through it, then you can get an idea what kind of flow rate you're getting out of each head. So we have cups, we have spoons. Before we break the machine down again, we can go ahead and cut the film. Everybody draw some ice cream, and then I'm going to show you how to pull all the mix out, and we'll flush the machine and do a full clean on it. Any questions?
You got so where are you set at right now? Are you all the way in?
These are about halfway.
About halfway?
Yep.
And let's see what the draw looks like on that, and then we'll tighten it a little bit and see what the draw looks like, and then loosen a little bit and see what the draw looks like.
So I'm going to tighten it all the way in.
All right.
These are actually out considerably.
Would you recommend tightening it all the way in and then slowly backing off as you pour more?
That's how I've done it before.
That's how you've done it too?
And it really depends on the thickness of the mix. See how, see how I can't pull it up anymore? And all it's doing is it's regulating how far you can pull the valve up. So that's all the way in. And now I can get a little bit coming out. See how slow that is? Mm-hmm. Are these self-serve machines where people are just...
We're going to have a...
You got a little bar? Okay. Now it's coming out a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple operational, as we have mix in the hoppers, as we're making soft serve, 2 things to check is if this thing's running all day, you're gonna generate foam in the hopper, and what that's gonna do, the longer it makes foam, and that's basically air churning out of this barrel up back into the hopper again, is it's going to fool the machine thinking it's full of mix. And one of the things we want to stay away from is running low on mix. Every time you run low on mix in the hopper, you're going to get a low mix signal. And that'll
makes that screeching noise.
Yes. That'll let your staff know when to add more mix into the machine. But if there's foam all up in the hopper, for it just basically running too long without drawing ice cream out, the hopper could be empty and the machine won't, the sensor won't trigger. Does that make sense to you guys? So they recommend scoop the foam out, check it on a regular basis, especially if you have a back-to-back event and you don't clean the machine overnight and you let it hold, it will just generate foam overnight. But you guys are going to drain it every day.
Yes, clean it every day.
Daily maintenance, soap and water sanitizer, clean all the machine off, stainless steel. Don't use any green scrubbies. Microfiber cloths recommended with polish just to give it a nice look again. You want to dump this out, clean it daily. Drip tray. And there's also 2 other drip trays under each barrel that keep an eye on it. It's not something that fills up on a regular basis, but if you see this getting either filled with water or a decent amount of mix, you're going to want to call a service agency because that means the barrel isn't sealed properly or it wasn't assembled again properly. We'll go over that once I take the machine apart. So, 2 of those.
As far as cleaning is concerned, how often should these machines be sanitized out?
After every use, correct?
Shep and I already decided when I walked over before I talked to him, he said daily.
With back-to-back concerts, that's going to be rough, just so you know.
We don't do concerts.
I'm talking about if
they're in
it's-
the concession
Yeah.
stands.
So that's not feasible, FYI. We'll talk about it.
Okay. You're at the end of the day, we're going to clean the machine. How do I get all the mix out of the hoppers, out of the barrels? What we're going to do is, while it's still frozen, we're going to want to push clean left and clean right. So, off, clean left, clean right. And what this is doing is it's churning the mix in a reverse direction without any refrigeration going to the cylinders. And what it's doing is just breaking the soft serve down into liquid form again so we can draw it back out again. If you decide not to clean the machine overnight and you're going to use it the next day, all the operator needs to do is left cylinder off, right cylinder off. That's just turning the freezer off on each cylinder, and everything's going to stay under refrigeration. And it's going to go into a hibernation mode. And about every 15-20 minutes, the barrels are going to agitate and stir the mix. Until you come in the next day and go, all right, see if we can push to freeze. There we go. Freeze it up again. Now it's freezing the cylinders again, making soft serve. So turn each head off and put it in a sleep mode overnight. All right, but we're gonna clean it. So turn these guys off and press clean left, clean right. Let it run for 5 minutes. Day in, day out operators do a full clean about every 3 days. And they'll leave the mix in for about 3 days. That's if they know there's gonna be staff there. There's only be about a 6 to 8 hour window where they're not using the machine. If you guys have longer than that, yeah, go ahead and do a full breakdown. So let's talk a little bit about cleaning. You can break it down however you want to. There's the actual tear down and cleaning of the machine, and then there's the rebuilding of the machine. It's recommended if this were in the evening and we're going to break it down, one of the staff members would do what we're getting ready to do now is bleed the machine out, save the mix, flush the machine with water, and then we take all the components to a 3-compartment sink and do a wash, rinse, sanitize, and let all the parts air dry until the next time we used it. Then you could have, next time we're gonna ramp up for another service, a staff member rebuild the machine and run a sanitizer through it. That's one way. Or you have somebody break it all down, do a full clean, wash, rinse, sanitize all the parts, rebuild it right then and there, run sanitizer through it, and then it's just sitting there waiting and ready for you guys to put mix in and run soft serve. That's, you can either use one staff member to do it the long way, or you break it in half and do two types of things. A challenge I've heard is when you have that lapse in time is all the parts are kind of floating around somewhere, waiting for another shift to come in and rebuild it. And
Parts can get lost.
Parts can get lost. If I was listening to the executive chef correctly, you guys are going to dedicate one person to do the cleaning. That might be my best angle, is have someone they strip it down, clean it, flush it. That way you're limiting possibilities for, if your critical control points, one guy. Okay, now that the cleaning cycle has gone a full 5 minutes, it's a good starting point, but hopefully we've broken up all the soft serve mix. Press the clean buttons to get them to stop. The easiest way to get the mix to flow into the barrel is we're going to pull the carb tube out again and just let it flood the barrel. So pull this guy out. Since we're having bus tub close. So. And grab yourself a 4-gallon cane barrel bucket. Thank you. And press clean again to get it to churn up and draw mix towards the barrel again. So I'm going to push clean left, and I'm just going to start pulling mix out. And once I get through the frozen product, it'll start coming in liquid at me. Mark label date, cover. Once the product mix has been drained, we're going to flush the hopper and cylinder with some warm water. Almost need like 6 buckets to do this. Yeah, I got. So hit some water, and then we will run the clean sequence again, just to churn it up a little bit. And drain both barrels. And we're going to keep doing this until the water runs clear. So now that the water is running clear, we're able to pull off the faceplate and the auger shafts. I'll try and get a little bit more out right before I pull it off. Plenty of towels and buckets. So pull the faceplate off. It's going to be sitting on there. And that's where I get a bus tub and I start pulling all the parts off. So pull the star bits off. And the newer machines are a little bit tougher. Yep, and your gaskets. Paper towels are also handy. They're great to grip all of the O-rings. So pull your draw valves out and they all push from the top to the bottom. Like so. There's a little thumb piece to get your finger underneath that main gasket, O-ring. And just start getting everything separated. Before I pull the rest of the equipment out, another thing we're going to want to do is get all of the O-rings off of the draw valves. And easiest way to do that is get some paper towels. We don't want to get a fork or a knife or a utensil. Don't even get our fingernails. The best way to remove the O-rings is to get a paper towel and push so you can see it pop up and then roll it along the shaft until it comes off. And I do this for every piece. Typically, if you're your first time doing it, what a lot of people end up doing is they'll roll the first one off first, and then they'll end up rolling the second one back into the same hole they popped off the first O-ring. So just a little tip. There's O-rings on your carburetor tubes. Same technique. Pinch and push. This we're having 3-compartment sink, a lot of water at your disposal because you can start grabbing things easier. So pull the O-rings off, get them separated. Bus tub seems to be the easiest way to keep all your pieces together, and we'll take all those and get them washed up. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the auger shaft out. And first piece I'm going to pull off. Ah, shit. Turn the power off first so I don't kill myself. Pull my 3-way piece off. What this piece does is suspends the barrel in the middle of the shaft. And it just hangs in there loosely.
What was that called?
They call this a 3-way or a Mercedes-Benz. There's no technical part name for it, but it's really kind of a bushing. And then there is an actual bushing inside the auger shaft, and it simply slides out. And then what churns the ice cream is the barrel. So the best way to pull this out is a little bit at a time, and it is a very heavy piece of stainless steel. And it has loose parts coming off of it, the paddles, as you start pulling it out. So I just pull one piece off, pull it out a little bit more, pull another piece off. Has 5 total paddles on each barrel. Don't want to drop this. This is why I usually have a table or something close, and I set it inside. This piece probably weighs about 25 pounds. And I have my top hat seal on the back. Then I'm going to go and pull the second barrel out. Same method as the first one. So now that we've taken all of the parts completely apart, we've washed in soapy water, rinsed, sanitized the headpiece, the carburetor tubes, the draw valves, the auger shaft, all the auger plates, they've all been washed, rinsed, and sanitized. And I'll get to sanitizing, but there is a specific sanitizing solution called Sterashine, which once we have the entire machine assembled, will also sterilize the hopper and barrel and all the parts inside with a quick rinse of the sanitizer. This is specially formulated to get rid of milk stones in soft serve machines. It's not recommended to use a quat sanitizer, specifically for soft serve machines. As I'm piecing the machine back together and I have all my pieces organized and near me, each machine comes with a Sterashine lubrication for all the O-rings and gaskets. And one little packet should be enough to lubricate the entire machine. It's recommended, I highly recommend, get a roll of paper towels. You can't use enough of these, but I keep them close by because you're going to get lubrication all over your fingers as you're getting these things ready. So here's an example of an auger, of a draw valve, and simply just going to put the O-rings back on. Reverse order, I pulled them off. And then you're going to get a little bit of lubricant and just glaze it on one and the other, and then get your fingers and get it nice and lubricated. And then as I'm standing here, I'm going to piece together my faceplate. And oh, I got it. Top to bottom. The way this reads is there's 3 pins in here. Top one and the triangulation, top of the triangle is the top of the plate. And you can see where the star bits fit on the bottom as well. So the 2 outside draw valves are identical, and they can go in either way, top or bottom. All right? Keep wiping my fingers on the paper towel. The middle tube actually has that O-ring in the middle, and it can only go in one way. It already has lubrication on it. Is the little channel in there, and it goes from bottom to top, only goes in one direction. You can't pull it all the way through. And my other draw valve simply slides in like so. First thing I do is I get this ready and get it ready to put on, so I'm not messing with it later. Take my lubrication, I will lubricate the seals on the carburetor tube. Just work it through with your fingers. Set it aside. And again, you can't have too many paper towels. Gloves don't work. You'll just get grease everywhere on your gloves. So, first thing to do to load up, I already have one side already loaded in, is I'm going to show you how to load in the auger shaft. Where you want to lubricate this shaft starting off is this seal right here on the end only gets lubrication. And this is where most of the tension and the pressure on the shaft is against that bigger O-ring on the back. Another thing I'm going to lubricate is what they call the spine. And I just kind of spread this on fairly gingerly, like so. And just take your finger and smooth it out. any excess. Again, let's grab a paper towel. I don't want any lubrication in between here and here. Next piece I'm going to put on is they call the top hat. And when you first look at this, you want to put on like so, but you really want to make sure it's inverted. So the top hat faces outward. And you want it just to float on that O-ring, and that's the only place you get lubricated. You know when you put this thing on wrong, what I mentioned before, this drip tray starts filling up with stuff, is because this piece of the machine isn't sealing properly against the back, and that's how you know you've either assembled it wrong or something's wrong with the machine, or the seal has been wore out. So I first get that ready, then I want to start adding my flights. Can't put this on the wrong way. The flights, basically there's two pieces. There's a spring and the plastic flight. And the spring threads on a quarter turn, and these are one of those things that if you're not paying attention, it's going to flop off on you and roll around the floor and you'll lose it. Good thing is every machine, we have a few spare parts with you. Each machine has it on location because these things typically happen. So on this spine, there's two different size holes. There's different size holes on the flight, different size holes on this auger. It can only go on one way. Can't go on the reverse way. So big hole, little hole, put one flight on. And the best way to do this is kind of just start piecing it together one piece at a time and load it one piece at a time. So now that I have my top hat and my first two flights on, I want to just rest it in the machine. And this is where having a cart and a bus tub close is handy because I don't want to let this go. And you can have these up on top of the machine wherever's comfortable. Make sure they're within arm's length. And I'm going to put my third flight on, slide it in a little bit more, and turn it to the top so I can put my next flight on. And as I keep going in, turn the last one to the top. I can let it go since it's 75% of the way in. And now I'm ready to make a final push on the auger. Next piece I want to get ready is a bushing. This does require some lubrication, inside and out. Simply set that guy in there. And then it is a little bit of a feel to where you get this thing locked in. So right now I can feel it's not going in all the way. I want to turn it a little bit, and then I can feel it make the rest of the way in. And you'll have a good 1/4 inch in there where you can see it fit. And the last piece you put in is this 3-way or Mercedes-Benz symbol, whatever you want to call it. And it's simply, and you kind of got to press it in, but it's making sure everything's centered and lined up. So you can't have it hanging out the edge and then expect to put the faceplate on. So you want to make sure both those are in lined up and everything will spin nice and smooth for you. Last but not least is the faceplate. This is an acrylic plate, and it has fingerprints galore all over it, and there's no way of getting around it. But this is probably one of the more expensive pieces of the machine, so I always handle it gingerly. You drop it, it's a good chance it might crack around the edges. But one of the tricky things is making sure these seals fit. So one of the things that makes it easy, before you put it in, stretch the O-rings out and set them in place, because they'll want to spring loose on you. No lubrication on the red O-rings. They're dry. And even as I'm working it here. Get it ready, best you can, and you kind of want to line it up, and that top piece goes right in that hole right there. And get the 4 holes lined up. Might have to adjust your draw valves so they line up correctly, and everything should line up in place, like so. Keep an eye on the red O-ring. If it falls out and pinches, you got to pull it all out again, make sure it lines up again, but it should have full red rings all the way around. So take your lock nuts and you want to put them in diagonal. Hand tight, that's all you need. Take your star pieces, go back on. Basically put them, they're kind of oblong, but pull them towards you so the front angled piece is out, then twist them in so they're not.
Can you hold one up again?
Kind of a triangle looking piece. Put the narrow piece towards me and then I'll fold it in. And then if this is simply just going to be for storage overnight, you just lay the carb tubes in, and however you want to do it, ready for the next shift. And then once the next shift comes on, they'll pour the mix in and add the carb tubes. So to sanitize the machine, for each side, we're going to use 1 packet of Stoelting, and this is a specially formulated sanitizer just for soft serve machines. So don't use a Home Depot bucket. Grab yourself a measured Cambro. 2 gallons of water for 1 packet. Roughly 100 degrees. That means when you stick your finger underneath the faucet, you can't tell whether it's hot or cold. That's about where you want to be. I usually take a brush, and each machine comes with an auger brush. Get it all nice and mixed up. And a good way to add the sanitizer is if you lay the brush in the hopper, it tends not to splash. Well, never mind that, but pour it right on the brush. It tends not to splash as much. Assuming you have everything put back together correctly, nothing's going to leak out of here. For sanitizing purposes, pull the carburetor out. And we'll make up another batch. That's a little warm. Each packet of Stoelting does come with a test strip. You want to measure it so that it reads 100 parts per million. And if that needs to be documented, document it as such. So now that I have sanitizer on both sides, I'm going to power the machine back up again. And we'll clean the left side, clean the right side. And there's a 5-minute timer for each side so that it sanitizes for the proper amount of time. So once this cleaning cycle is finished, we'll grab an empty bucket, drain all the sanitizer out, and leave it. One of the things we don't want to do is flush it with water again, then it won't be sanitary again. So once the sanitizers run through the machine, it should be good. When we go to add more mix again, the first draw, once the mix is in, we'll flush out the rest of the sanitizer, and then the machine is perfectly sterile and in use to use again. That's all I have.